Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, random topic of depressing anime. I don't know why it was just on my mind. I was like, oh, I could talk about that for a video. Just because like I feel like some people can sometimes undermine like how impactful an anime can be, and it just sort of started making me think about, oh yeah, there's actually quite a few like depressing animes. Like the first one that kind of comes to my mind is Full Metal Alchemist, which I mean, if you once like, I've talked about it a little bit before, but it's like if you've never seen Full Metal Alchemist, check it out. It's like a fantastic series, but that's a series that is very depressing. Not in its entirety. It's not from. I mean, when you break it down, like the basic premise of the show, like the series is very depressing. You know, it's like, oh, two boys, you know, their mom died and they wanted to bring her back to life with alchemy, and it ended up costing them so much. So they're on his journey to get back what they lost, add his limbs, but more so than anything, getting Alphonse's body back. So very depressing premise from the beginning. But obviously the show's not all like depressing and stuff like that, but it has like, obviously it's a very actiony show. It also has like a lot of depth and, you know, comedy to it as well. There's like philosophy like elements to it as well, just certain aspects of it that kind of really get you thinking, but also the very depressing aspects of it. There's like so many points in that anime I can jump to, but obviously I won't go to it just because there's spoilers and everything, that I'm like, man, that's depressing as hell. There's just like a lot of like points you're like, oh man, that like breaks your heart. Like one, for example, like I brought it up before, I've seen the original anime, which like it's been years since I saw it, and I think I've talked about Brotherhood to a certain extent. I've still yet to watch a lot of it. I don't remember, like I remember bringing up before, but I don't remember if I brought up the fact is I have seen fractions of Brotherhood, but only the bits of Brotherhood that are similar to the original anime. And because it had been so many years by that time, like there was a certain story element that I won't dive too deeply into it, but it involves chimeras. I'd completely forgotten about that storyline, and then it hit me. I was like, oh my god, this is a thing, and it broke my heart all over again. I was like, I buried that the thought of this story so deep and far away, and like I'd almost completely forgot about it. It's like I forgot that's pretty like early on in the anime too, and it's like that is like one of the most like, that's like one of the saddest storylines in that, and it's just, it's like this little contained thing. I don't remember because it's been such a long time whether that has very lasting effects. I do know it comes up again, certain characters involved in it definitely come up again, but it's like it has such a sad like how the story plays out when like chimeras are kind of introduced and stuff like that. But not even just that, there's another one, there's one called X. Like I've seen the movie and I've seen a little bit of the anime, which like there's like the animated series. Obviously it's like the movie isn't animated as well, but the series is like very different from the animated movie, and I think there's also a manga tied to it as well, but I've never watched like the entirety of the anime nor read any of the manga. I've only watched the movie, and I will go ahead and spoil it for you, because why? Because the movie's like 18 years old at this point. It came out like 1999. But literally, that is probably like from beginning to end, probably the most depressing ass like things I've ever seen, because it's just like, literally the final scene is literally this like, dude, how messed up is that? I think that's one of the reasons why I haven't watched it, because when stuff kind of bums me out, I rarely rewatch it, because I always like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to rewatch, because it has like some interesting action bits and just a concept behind the entire thing, but then it's like, getting to that part of the story is like, you know, kind of depressing. Kind of another one that falls under that line. I don't remember this anime like very much about its premise and stuff like that. All I remember is the fact that it's depressing. It's literally kind of the same thing as X, and it bummed me out. I've yet to rewatch it. Like the anime's from like 2003, so it's quite old at this point itself. So, but it's called Technolites. I don't even think I brought that up at the beginning, but it's like I don't remember much of the premise of it. Just remember it's like, because it's kind of like set in a like dystopia world, so it kind of like, it being depressing kind of fits the tone of the like setting and stuff like that. So it's like, of course it's gonna have a depressing ending with that particular case. So it just kind of blows my mind that like, you know, because like I brought up earlier, I feel like some people kind of treat like anime because it's cartoons, it's like, oh, how can you get so emotionally attached? It's like when they tell enough, like when you're able to tell a compelling story, no matter what the format is, that you can evoke that type of emotion from someone. I think that just shows you how good of a story you are. You're able to kind of pull such raw emotion from like cartoons and stuff like that. And I feel like, because there are times where I feel like there are moments like there are anime that kind of get me teared up more than like even some TV shows, which I've talked about in the past, like how I get about TV shows and stuff like that, but also like even movies. And it's like, it's kind of a league of its own. Like when it comes to anime, they're able to invoke, I don't know, maybe it's just because like I'm an even bigger fan of anime than I am just regular TV or movies. I mean, definitely movies, but you know, maybe anime and TV are just kind of tied for a special place in my heart type of thing. So I don't know, it's just, this was like a random thing that was kind of floating in my head, and I was like, oh, I could talk about that. So it's like, I have a question to you guys is, do you like, what are like some of the most depressing animes that you've ever seen? Like, what makes them depressing? If you want to go into details, you can. I mean, in case you're like, oh, I don't want to spoil this for anyone, but it's like, this anime is like super depressing, like, would you recommend it? Or is it because it's so depressing that you're like, it fills you with such dread and hopelessness, it's like, do not watch this, because it's like, it's cool, but it's like, it will leave you feeling just sad by the time you reach the end of it. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.